My name's Rick Munn. This is No Risk, No Reward Media, and I'm super duper happy today to be joined by the Cookstown Sizzler himself, Mr. Mark Molloy. Mark, how you doing?
My friend Rick, how are you keeping?
I'm keeping well. I'm keeping well. It's good to see you again. It's been a while since you and me had a yarn, and a lot has happened since the last time that we spoke, Mark. A lot has happened, and unfortunately, not a lot of it is good. I want to look at some issues that are happening in Ireland at the minute. One in particular that's, I suppose you would say, on your doorstep, maybe that a lot of people aren't aware of, but there's a squad called Dalradian Gold, who apparently want to turn your neighbourhood into a gold mine, dig the place up for the next 25 to 28 years, pull out hundreds of tons of gold and precious metal. And the word on the street is cyanide has been mentioned as a possible mining method. Of course, they're denying it, but the locals are up in arms about this. Don't poison us. Some people are saying it's not so bad. We're going to get jobs here. Doesn't matter about the cyanide in the water. What do you make of all this?
It's what I would call it is, if this gets in, it's the catalyst.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it will be the only cyanide processing plant in Western Europe. So you think about all the other mines around Europe, they'll start drawing in and processing stuff from all over Europe. Financially, that's more beneficial, tell them near enough than the gold mine itself.
Mm-hmm.
Because these people have to put it and send it elsewhere to get it processed, bleached and whatnot, So it's a very, very toxic process. These people here have no allegiance to this country. They're Canadian-based prospecting mining company. I'm just going to tell you it straight. They've intimidated the community.
Mm-hmm.
They have a thing called a community fund. If you were sitting up there and something unfortunate happened, your car broke down or something like that, you'd maybe get a wee knock at the door. For the bowl of soup, you'll get our support.
Mm-hmm. So it's like how would you say a slick PR machine going on there, because let's be honest about it. People are getting it tight at the minute, especially down the neck of the woods that this company's planning on swooping in on. And that's why I said it's quite weird. Some people are saying, well, hang on a minute, our water supply and our air supply could be contaminated here if they use cyanide-based projects. Other people are saying, but it's good for the economy. We need jobs down here. This could generate 1,000 jobs. It's almost like you forget about any negative effects on your health or in the environment if it generates a bit of income for the area.
Well, the hypocrisy of it is there's a community liaison officer, one Peter McKenna, and he is a native of Greencastle.
Mm-hmm.
They used to own a pub and all up in there, and you're looking down into the valley and whatever. And he went away years ago till America, wherever it was, and came back. And Joe Mahan,
Mm-hmm.
Mahan's Way. Mahan's Way was up there in there before they were even talking about the gold mines before, and he was a young buck. And he was saying, this is wonderful, this place here, it should be, whatever, da. Well, this is a man now he's the community liaison officer, so he knows the ways about the back roads up around the mountains, and he knows how to bring them here, and he knows this, and he knows that, and you speak to this, and you don't speak to that. You'll get it difficult with this one, you'll not get it difficult with that one. And this man here is... to me, he's massive part of the problem. You can understand foreigners, Canadian gold mines, why would they care? You know what I mean? It's only in our country, the mining. But if you were reared in a place and you seen your people and your generations and everything, your friends, everything, working the land, and now the half of them wouldn't even look the road he's on. There's never been any violence.
Mm-hmm.
There's never been anything whatsoever. That has all come from the part of the heavy boy bully tactics of Dalradian, the PSNI, Politicians are involved in the background. Now, that's a Sinn Féin stronghold. So Sinn Féin always get it first. You know what I mean? Sinn Féin stronghold. But Sinn Féin, DUP, SDLP, Lions Party, them all, right? Because it was DUP minister who was Gordon Lyons who was issuing the prospecting licenses. You know, so
because this goes back. This isn't just something that's happening now. This is going back. There was a group set up, Save Our Sperrin set up in 2015. So we're talking at least 10 years here of trying to oppose what's going on here, opposing plans by Dalradian for an underground mine near Greencastle. The firm has been working on the Coronalt site. Is that the right way to say it? In the Sperrin. Coronalt for the last 15 years. So this isn't something that's new. This is something that's been bubbling along in the background and has had opposition now for at least 10 strong years. But yet here we are, and they're on the verge of going into the ground here. And when they do start to put the drills in, assuming that they do proceed forward with this plan, you're talking about a mine with an expected lifespan of between 20 and 25 years, possibly 28 years, stripping out 1,500 tonne a day of rocks to try and get 100 tonne of gold out of it, a few thousand tonne of silver and various other precious metals. It's going to completely change that area forever. You can't, you can't come back from something like that.
It's even worse than that. I'm going to give you a scale of those numbers on right. So, in the Sperrins, they expect to use $5 million of explosives in a year. 11 detonations twice a day, and every detonation, could have up to 15, 20 explosions. Boom, 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 and that there's for 20 years. That's on one of the applications. 20 years, 365 days a year, 7 days a week. And the thing about this here is, that's granite rock mountains up there. So if the crack came in that, a sump, there's a hollow in underneath, whatever, our riverbeds could run dry. Now, we've got a massive mess in Lough Neagh, and the likes of that would run into it and run into the foil. It's running down both. So it's way up high in the highest raised bog in Western Europe, and the danger is, if you dig down into that, Rick, you release a thing called natural occurring radioactive materials, norms. That's called radon. And there's high levels of radon up there. And radon is radioactive. So there's another plan looking at a geological disposal facility. And it's a UK state-owned corporation called, what do you call it, critical raw material, or Cromwatch, whatever. They're UK based. They've put it out to all devolved institutions. England's turned it down, Wales turned it down, Scotland's turned it down. Our devolved institution is, they're not very brainy, as in the sense of entrepreneurship, trying to send our export ourselves as our product, Irish. The only thing that we do export that is Irish and is the best in the world is our farm products, the agri products. Well, it's the number one industry in here. It's the number one industry up in them mountains. We live in a rural place. You're no too far from a field anywhere in the north here. So they have so you have the rural areas, and they want to come in there and remove the farming. The farming, they want to re-wet lands, they want to stop cutting bogs, they want to do this, they want to do that. They're decimating the farming, they're putting big windmills up on it. They're decimating. Them windmills is killing, like, you have curlew birds and all, which are an endangered species, and you have hawks and buzzards and whatnot, and even white-tailed eagles. You have kites and things like that there. They're been cut down. Up there, Strabane there's a big row of windmills. And you can actually hear that there if you're standing up there. And that's a frequency. So what's that not doing to people? What's that not doing to animals?
That's a daily thing as well. Obviously, it needs the wind before them things is blown, but they don't put them in unstrategic areas, so they're going to put them in places that they think they're going to be as operational as possible. You're talking about frequencies there off them wind farms, and you mentioned as well there about this mine that if it goes, for 20 to 25 years, running 365 days a year, it says there'll be some maintenance days factored in. So basically, what they're saying is they might have a day a year off. They might take Christmas Day off where they're not putting the alarm up and then putting the explosives up. But if you've ever lived near a quarry, and my mother-in-law, there's a couple of big quarries near her place out in the country, and they have to sound an alarm like a foghorn going off to make people aware there's going to be an explosion. And then, a minute or two later, bang, and then it throws up as well. It throws up a lot of dust, as you can imagine. That comes down and settles on the hedges, settles on the trees, settles on the fields. You're breathing it in. How anybody cannot, even if they don't use cyanide, the amount of pollution and stuff that this is going to throw up is crazy, but it seems to be a lot of blind eyes are being turned to this one. A few people are protesting against it. Some locals are for it. The politicians are for it. The mining companies obviously for it. It's going to be great for Northern, is it?
And well, I seen Orla Begley there, Sinn Féin, yesterday getting her news opportunity with Cool FM standing outside, and then they brought it up in the storming buildings there, part of their minutes, and the minister who wears the dicky bow he's the environment minister. Aye, that wee boy, the wee nerdy boy. Well, they brought it up and he says, well, he can't talk too much about it because it's an ongoing thing. Right. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's a taboo subject. They're all heavily vested in it. They're going about and telling everybody because there's that big a backlash now. We've done a great job in highlighting this here. Not only I'm going to read you this. This was 2015. This is Police Watch Over Vision of Gold Riches for Northern Ireland. Well, why would the police be watching over it? They're not a private security firm.
Or maybe they are.
Pay them. Why? Well, they actually asked that question too because of security that was provided. They sent Dalradian a bill, and Dalradian didn't pay it. And then they put in a thing because there's explosives being used. Then the bill was free, so they get free security from the police, the PSNI, because of that clause, because there's explosives involved in it. So the police watch over vision of gold riches for Northern Ireland. This is in the 16th of July 2015, Bloomberg, UK. Explosives for mines arrived with police escort. And thereafter, more than 30 blasts shook the Curnault mine in Northern Ireland. Dust still hung over the air. That's that dust you were talking about. Through the haze. This sounds like a story, you were reading school. Through the haze, amongst the collapsed rocks, were glints of gold. That's the prize for Canada's Dalradian Resources Inc. What about the Irish people?
Aye.
That's the prize for them. Oh, right. Okay. And a potential boost for the UK's poorest region. It's great, the thought of us, isn't it?
It's lovely.
A potential boost, they said. A potential boost. They weren't even giving you a guarantee that it will be a boost.
No.
Potential being the operative word. It has potential.
It's got potential, Mark. It's got potential to lead a lot of good from their side, but it's got the potential to lead up a lot of bad from ours. What else does it say there?
There is wealth here. But it's not for us.
No.
Patrick Anderson, Dalradian's 47-year-old chief executive officer, said the region's capital of Belfast where his ancestors worked in the nearby shipyards, produced the Titanic in 1911. We know how that one worked out. We know how that one worked out. They're still sending people down looking for it. I'm not talking about a single mine here. We are working on building a main camp. The 26% of the North's landmass, 28% of the South's landmass has already been prospected. Now, people's going to call me a conspiracy theorist about this, but you look at how these things work everywhere. The UK and Europe want to meet zero net emission. Well, with that there, you need a lot of precious metals, resources and minerals. You need gold, you need silver, you need cobalt, you need lithium, you need all those things. We've got it in abundance. You see, Yeru, land of abundance, that's what it translates into. Fat lands. We're bursting at the seams. And it's relatively untouched. So now they want to go in and take everything from underneath you, and so you'll not work the fields above them, whatever, stick solar panels on it. Now, if you look out your window today, anywhere in Ireland, there's a boy up there in the sun, you might see him the odd day. Like.
That's a thing, but wind farms, and that's another thing too. They call them farms, but they don't grow. Think about the names they use, Mark. Wind farm, solar farm. A farm is something that you grow things, you grow produce on, you farm animals on there, you grow crops on there, you consume them, you stay alive. There's nothing being farmed on these so-called farms, and they're dependent on the wind blowing, and they're dependent on the sun shining. And to be honest with you, a more Irish thing nobody could ever hope to see than a solar farm in Ireland, because we'd tell you something, you'd be lucky if you could count the fingers on two hands of the amount of days of really good sunshine that you get here. And especially over the last couple of years, the skies have been not even dark, they've been milky white. There aren't even any clouds in our skies anymore. It's just this white, black, grey, depressing blanket that hangs over us. And good luck seeing the sun two dozen days a year.
I know that there, and like the other one there that I have here was released on the 17th of April 2023, and on the same day the Tyrone Herald released a newspaper article, Sinn Féin and Mid-Ulster Council here, saying they were opposed to radioactive materials, spent materials being dumped in this country. They have to come out, sound bites like to be. It's funny they come out on the exact same day this was released. British BGS has identified large parts of the country as prospective for CRM's critical raw materials. The key areas identified as particularly worthy of more research are around the Loch Marie near Gairloch, Scotland, parts of Central Highland in Aberdeenshire, areas in mid-county Tyrone, Northern Ireland. That's where I'm at, people. Parts of Cumbria in England, that's where Sellafield's at. Parts of the Pennine, Orfield in England, and Northwest Wales, Pembrokeshire, Wales, and Southwest England. So there's no chance of it going in England. You know what I mean? Only 0.3% of England's landmass is prospected. 26% of ours is already prospected. 28%, that's over a quarter of our whole landmass on this entire island. We don't stand to benefit nothing. They're already out the coast of Mayo there, see the shale oil or whatever, are exploiting the oil and gas. Norway, they're the management assets management team for it. So they take it, do whatever they do with it, and sell it back to us at a profit. But they give their population in Norway a dividend every quarter or every 6 months. And they're all very wealthy. And in the 80s, the two countries had the same wealth. Quite poor and whatever, you know what I mean? Norway, they're sitting with, as I said this before, they're sitting with snowboards in cafes, on their computers, checking their Bitcoin before they jump on a ski lift up to the top of the mountains. You know, they don't have to work like. So we're all our resources. They ruined us in the 80s through war, and you know, but that wasn't enough. Now they're coming back for our data, right? Because you have the digital data service or whatever, the digital health bill. You know what I mean? They're looking to bring that in. It's all connected. It's all data centers. There's data centers all over Dublin. They're extracting huge amounts of water. The reservoirs in Dublin, they're stripping us down of the things that has made this country great, and it's of no benefit, and that's an awful cheek, like. No benefit to Irish people. The Crown gets 4%, Rick, of everything that comes out of the country here, where it's north, south, east, west, doesn't matter. They don't care. I've got a couple of wee things here. This here was done, and it was in a wee video, and I took the screenshots of it because it was just straight and to the point, and it was wee screenshots of that harmless 300 you received of the Tyrone Fund. What are the implications? Now this is daily, every day. 35.6 grams of gold sold to recuperate the costs. 375 kgs of ore concentrate produced. 4,458 kilograms of ore mined to produce concentrate. 1,783 tons of rock moved to extract ore. Average 50 tons per gram. 2,551 kilograms of waste added to the dry stacked stockpile. Around 50% will go to the stockpile. So that there's the stuff that they take out, they process, and they don't put it back. They say, oh, we'll put it back to the land. But they don't put it back in underneath. They put it on top and they stack it up.
You see what you're describing as well. I'm just listening to your figures there, and some of the figures, and we'll stick with this. Actually, there was a few other things I wanted to talk to you about today, but I think we need to go into this, or we need to keep digging into this, no pun intended, this whole gold mine thing. So if they get out of it what they expect to get out of it, so they're talking about it could again create 1,000 jobs. There's no guarantee that that's actually going to happen. They reckon over the course of the lifetime of that mine that they could be able to pull out. Here's what it says. Dalradian believes, now this is an article that's just been published today in the BBC. I'm sorry for having to quote them, but they're talking about information. It's just what they expect from it. So they said Dalradian believes it could yield 100 tons of gold, 48 tons of silver and 15,000 tons of copper in its 20 to 25 year lifetime. Now, if you look at the price of gold at the minute as well, it's at an all-time high.
It's about 2,000.
£2,200. £2,200 an ounce, and they're talking about mining out 100 tons of it, and that's just the gold, and that's probably a lowball figure. That's the minimum that they're looking out of it, plus the silver, plus the copper, which is very expensive at the minute too. The amount of money that they could be making off of the back of this could be, of course, they're not a charity, they're out to maximise their profits, right? So going back to what you said at the very, very start, where there's like a wee PR operation going at the minute, you know, keep an eye out for the community. If Mark's cars broke down, or you could get a wee knock at the door maybe. I'm not sure how they operate it, but of course they want to try and do a wee bit of PR there, because what they're doing is they're throwing you the scraps, they're throwing the people of Tyrone scraps and bits of bones here, while they take the chicken fillet, you know what I mean? They take the sirloin, you get the bones. And I saw this happening in reverse, believe it or not. I was in Kenya years ago, and I ended up in this place, and it was no man's land called Turkana province, the northwest of Kenya that nobody wants, a little bit like, with all due respect, maybe the way Tyrone would be looked at today in terms of the north of Ireland. It's like, okay, well, like County Down, there's money there and there's a bit of dough there in Antrim. Tyrone, Fermanagh, not so much. We're not so keen in Strabane. Well, this place in Kenya, Turkana province, was just wasteland. There was nothing in it. There was people fighting, civil war going on between the Pokot militia, the Turkana militia. The Kenyan government, we're not interested. We don't even look at that as part of our country. We're not giving them no money. We're not giving them any support. We're keeping it in Nairobi, in the capital. Well, what happened was an Irish oil company called Tullow Oil actually went out and prospected in this scrub area called Turkana province, and they hit oil. Tullow Oil, Irish oil company in Kenya. All of a sudden, the government said, that's our place, Turkana. We want to start investing in the roads. We want to build schools for the poor children. We want to get medical supplies out there for those poor people, because they knew unless they would have to take the land by force, because it was all tribal land, you know, because you have the Maasai tribe in Kenya, you have various different tribes, and then you had the Pokots and the Turkana tribe. It was their ancestral land. So unless they kept them sweet, which they did, but what they didn't realise was them old fellas had no concept of what real wealth was. So if the Kenyan government came along and offered them £1 million, and you having a pot to piss in, with all due respect, that's a lot of money, but it's not a drop in the bucket to what Tullow Oil was expecting to be making, and of course the kickbacks that they'd have had to make to the government over there too. So I think it's fair to say that, be under no illusion, even if jobs are created in Tyrone, and even if it does provide a little bit of a boost to the economy, the payback in terms of what they're going to be stripping out and pocketing, and the damage that could be done, not just to the community, but to the farmland and to the ecosystem and to the air and to the water, is not maybe worth any amount of investment that they're going to make into the area, is it?
Well, I'm going to throw this one out. Tell you, you were talking there about the IPAS centre, so we'll mix it up a wee bit.
Yeah.
Let's think about it. Let's think logically about it. How many miners do you know?
None.
So anybody from this country, Ireland, north or south, east or west of it, ask yourself that question. And then ask the person next to you that question. And you're going to come up with the same answer that you give. So if this is 28% of the south prospected and 26% of the north prospected, and it's full to the teeth of gold, both north and south. You have the Tar Mains. Don't forget the Tar Mains is running down the centre iron, you know. It's all linked to that vein. The Dalradian vein comes from Scotland. So, and then down there, you've got, I would say, about a few miles as the crow flies, you've got Galantis gold. Well, these two gold mines are not operating at the minute. And there's probably a good reason behind it, because they need Dalradian to get up and running. They need this processing plant. Now, they've been in there and they denied that they wanted this sign. Take into consideration, Rick, that mine up there, that compound, is deemed an illegal compound since 2019. They've no license. The license ran out and it never renewed again. So here we are in the middle of a public-led inquiry, whatever. It's not a judge-led inquiry, public inquiry. It's just an ordinary. And here we are. It's an exercise, just, you know. But it's a good exposing exercise, because questions are asked and they have to be answered. You know.
You talk
and they have to be answered truthfully. So you go into the IPAS centres and you think, all these people, where are these people coming from? Where are most of these people coming from? They say there's people from Ukraine. Is Ukraine a big mining country? It is. Is Africa, parts of Africa, Sierra Leone, all that
big
there?
Big time.
Did anybody ever watch the film Blood Diamond? Sierra Leone, things like that? All big mining, but what have they all got in common? Well, they have a lower standard of living than what we have, so they're cheap labour. And they're willing to take risks. They're not just like your Irish boy. I'm not going down in there. You give me £2,000, I'll go down in there. These boys there go down in there for £2. You know what I mean?
You spoke about this to me before. I remember years ago we were talking on TNT, and you brought up about the open borders and people's coming in. And one thing that people have been commenting on is how come it's all men? How come it's all? In fact, the words that are used, Mark, are young, fighting age men. And when you look at the people that are coming in, you're not seeing them coming in on crutches. You're not seeing anybody coming in who's obese. You're looking at them going, these boys look like they've done military service, or they look like they could handle themselves. They look like they're fit and strong. And with respect to the Irish population that's going on at the minute, with the obesity rates at the levels that they are, with the certain amount of work shyness there, where people say, I'm too good for that. I'm too good to do that. You think you're going to get enough labour for 20 to 25 years, 365 days a year? So when they talk about creating 1,000 jobs there, how many of those jobs do you think will go to Irish people or the people at Tyrone? How many of the people at Tyrone would even want to be doing a mining job, especially if there's toxic materials involved? On the other hand, if you need a big workforce, and thinking about this as we're talking, where's the biggest concentration of people coming into the north of Ireland, Northern Ireland? Where are they all concentrated that are coming in from overseas? They're concentrated down your neck of the woods. They're not. There's pockets in Belfast, but by and large, it's all down round by Dungannon and Cookstown and in Tyrone. You're not seeing...
What have them places got in common? They're all nationalist-held places. Sinn Féin led councils. So, the housing estates the housing estates where I was reared as a child, Rick. There's more foreigners living in them now, and these were Republican areas, right? And look, whatever. You know what I mean? It's whatever the case may be. I don't give a shit about that there. But the people that lived in them have bought them houses whenever Thatcher gave the you could right to buy your council house. So they were buying them at £5,000 and £6,000 and £7,000, £11,000, and they had them paid off. And then they're renting them out, and they've bought themselves. They've upgraded. So it's beneficial to a lot of these people now that were living in housing estates now. They don't worry about it. Why? They have 5, 6 houses, and this seems to be the trend here. And there seems to be a trend of buy to let. This vulture funds, but these vulture funds are local people. And I don't mind anybody making a lakh a pound or anything like that, or accumulating their wealth with property and all. But not to the detriment of your own community. While you have moved away somewhere else and you don't give a shit.
That's it.
What I mean?
That's it.
So you look at the likes of, look at the gold rush in San Francisco. So what happened back in San Francisco? I mean, doing the Great Northern Rail, and then that was built for the gold rush and all that in America. Well, what are they talking about doing here? Building a rail infrastructure up the west coast of Ireland, right up to the very north, up to Donegal, right? And then from Warren Point across Dungannon, across the centre, right from east to west, up into Donegal. Well, that goes across to Dungannon, Omagh, Derry. So if you were looking to move, say, raw materials, critical raw materials, well, you don't want a load of lorries out in the road full of stuff, toxic waste flying off them. It needs to be controlled, and they need to be shown that they control it. So the best way to do that is by rail. The only way and safest way to move critical raw materials, as in nuclear spent materials, is by rail. Now, Warren Point Harbour has been dredged, I think, 137 times bigger. They've widened it. And why? It's to take in commercial shipping. This is the big plan, people. They're sitting there denying it, and then the next thing you know, it'll be here. If that gold mine goes ahead, it will destroy the kingdom of Ireland. It will destroy it. Where you're Catholic, where you're black, where you're white, where you're Protestant, where you're Hindu, where you're Muslim, Doesn't matter. They'll destroy it. No gold mine ever left a place in a good state after it left.
No, it was always good for the people that were operating it. It was good for the fat cats or maybe the people that sold the land on which it was on. But if they don't hang around, it's a mercenary thing. They'll go where the money's best. They'll take what they can. And as you say, no harm in making a few quid, making a bit of profit if you're doing a bit of wheeling and dealing, but not at the expense of your own community and not at the expense of the longevity of your own country, which I think is the big problem here. And interesting, you were saying there about the rails and infrastructure being expanded. Again, East Africa is somewhere I spent a lot of time. And I can remember I started going out there in 2007. And the one thing that struck me more than anything, which I couldn't understand at the time, was the amount of Chinese contractors building roads in Kenya. And the roads were terrible. I mean, they were the worst roads you'd swear they'd been carpet bombed by foreign planes, to make potholes big and make travel. And they were just terrible roads. But the Chinese came in, and I seen it over the course of 10 or 11 years, building roads until they were like beautiful tarmac highways. And I thought, well, where are these roads going? And they were starting at the port of Mombasa in Kenya, which is the way into East Africa. You've either got Dar es Salaam in Tanzania or you've got Mombasa in Kenya. The roads go over to Nairobi, like you're talking about, from Warren Point, cutting all the way across to, Donegal way.
Yeah.
Right across. Well, what the Chinese were doing and are still doing is they were investing heavily into the infrastructure, because them roads, they needed to get a road from the coast, which was Mombasa, through the capital of Kenya, which was Nairobi, right up to the Ugandan border, round past Entebbe, and then down into the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is probably the biggest source of rare earth minerals and cobalt and lithium and everything else going. The Chinese weren't building roads in Kenya because they were concerned about potholes. They were putting infrastructure in to get the raw materials that they were mining from DRC through Rwanda or through Uganda, through Kenya, onto the ports of Mombasa, where they could then ship them across to the Far East. So it's a wee strategy that you see.
It's happening up there. It's already happened up there. I was took up there one day, and we came down in the back roads, and this is on top of a mountain, and you had big double roads. You know the way we roads, you have to pull in, you have to, is he going to hit me up on the top of a mountain? No. This here is big double roads for lorries to pass each hour, and the tarmac is about 10, 12 inches thick, and it's nice big,
yes,
smooth
the best of gear.
And where it goes, we followed it. So it goes down in the back road and cuts out onto the dual carriageway here, and that dual carriageway will bring you on down into Toom, and you're on then to the M2, which direct line down into the docks in Belfast. It's not much manoeuvring,
No.
When you think about it, so you have the shanty towns, or prefab towns, that popped up in San Francisco. Well, I'm seeing people putting drones up, and you're seeing these prefab towns.
Yes,
popping up.
Modular homes, they call them.
And it just came to me here as we were thinking here. So them modular homes, where these places are popping up, start looking up about the prospecting licenses that have been issued in those areas, people. Just out of curiosity, freedom of information, prospecting licenses. Is the tar mines near you? Is there certain mines near you? Start looking into it. Because then it might become a wee bit clearer on what. Now, I'm not saying all these people are here to do that.
No.
They're here to play a job, do a job, whatever, you know what I mean, whatever the case may be, to distract us while the government is removing our rights from this year.
You're the only person, and I talked a lot about, this is the truth. You're the only person that I've talked to that's ever brought this up. And you've been talking about it now on and off to me for about 2 or 3 years, right? And over the 2 or 3 years, this thing isn't going away. This thing's intensifying. And the stuff that you were you brought up this theory, well, maybe they're ferrying in a workforce, or at least partial workforce, to strip mine Ireland. And that was 2022. I think 2023 was the first time you and me started talking about this. So 2 or 3 years ago. And that looks like, you're joining, the dots are being joined. And like you said, it's not a case of everybody coming into Ireland and going into an IPAS centre is going to end up working for Dalradian Gold or anybody else. But they do need, in their own words, at least 1,000 jobs to operate 365 days a year for 20 to 25 years straight. Mark, that's a lot of labour.
One main.
And that's one main. And of course, the way these things work is when the foot's in the door, if you get one mine up and running and you get it planned, then all of a sudden then it opens the door to another one and more labour's needed and more mining's being done and on it goes. So yeah, you need the infrastructure there, which is being assembled as we speak. You need the workforce there, which arguably is being assembled as we speak. Mm-hmm. And I think they're on the cusp of this. What's the timeline for this one in terms of them actually getting this thing started? What's really standing in their way at the minute?
The people. The people, ordinary working class farmers and miners and whatever that care for the land, and it's been preserved up there. They've got, you talk about heritage and culture and all. It's up there. You've got Bethmore stone circles. You've got dark skies. The Sperrins is a outstanding natural beauty. Yeah. But there's no what do you call that, protection? The way they do UNICEF or whatever.
Yeah. World Heritage Sites. World Heritage Sites.
So Stonehenge is a World Heritage Site, right? But the Bethmore Stone Circles, which outdates Stonehenge, is not a World Heritage Site.
It's like listed buildings, really, isn't it?
If you question that there, because if you had a World Heritage Site there, it would put restrictions that you can't do certain things.
It's like a listed building. If you have a grade 1, grade 2 listed building, you can't do things with it. You can't pull the front of it off. You can't put double glazed windows in. You have to keep the integrity of the structure. So in much the same way, I suppose the brakes are off there. If it's not a UNESCO World Heritage Site, well, then they're pretty much free to go in and do whatever they want to do. Let me ask you one last question. Because I'll follow up with you. There's a few other things I wanted to talk to you about today, but I think it's good that we've focused in on this one particular, because nobody else is doing it that I am aware of. All right, a few people are mentioning it. Nobody's going into a deep dive on it. So really, this thing proceeding will ultimately depend on the people who owns the land granting permission or signing it over to Dalradian Gold. Now, I don't know these people, so I'm not making a comment on the people that own the land because I don't know them. But these companies have a way of putting pressure on for different angles and getting what they want. These big gold mining companies. You look at some of the biggest gold mining companies in the world: BHP Billiton and Newcrest and Newmont. When they see a place and they want a place, they tend to get the place. All right. Now, whether that be by skullduggery or whether that be by literally whipping out a checkbook and say, you put the number down on it, whatever number you put on it's the number we're going to give you. I'm just thinking here, without judging anybody, because you don't know anybody's personal circumstances, somebody could be in dire straits. Somebody could be sitting on a farm up there they could be losing money for working 60, 70 hours a week. They could be thinking, well, I'm going to have nothing to pass on to my family anyway. This is a dead duck. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody was in that position. If I was in that position, I'd consider it, going, well, you know what? I'm busting my ass here and I'm getting nothing. I'm getting no help from the government and I'm going to leave nothing to the kids anyway. And then Dalradian comes along and says, Rick, what do you want for this land? How does 10 million sound? How does 50 million sound? It'll be in your bank account tomorrow morning. You can't say people wouldn't be tempted by that. Will that be the thing that ultimately swings it, the lure of the payout?
Well, think about, did you ever watch the film The General? Martin Cahill, black and white. With,
I don't think I've seen it, no.
Brendan Gleeson, fantastic film. He lived in Dublin. He was a gangster. He'd done the big art raid and whatever, and then apparently the IRA shot him. It was the guards that shot him and blamed IRA, But he lived in a housing estate back in Dublin when they were knocking all down these housing estates to clear way for them so they could build up Dublin, whatever, back in the 80s, you know. Well, he lived in one of the houses and everybody else had moved out around him. And in the film, they showed him and he lived in the house, and then the next thing, he ended up staying there in a tent. Mm-hmm. And he dictated to them where he wanted. So the funny thing was, he says, I want a house over there in wherever, and it was one of the most affluent places in Dublin, you know, and this is, what do you want to, that's not a wee bit far away from home from you. He says, I want to be close to work. You know, but look, that we are under. It's an existential threat, people. Now we talked in 2021, Rick, and whatever, and we talked about things, and people called us conspiracy theorists. Mm-hmm. We talked about Agenda 2030, mm-hmm. and there's Ireland 2040, mm-hmm. and Ireland 2050. And the EU and the UK and all have all signed up to sustainable goals and climate change and whatever the case may be, and net zero. Mm-hmm. So they're all getting incentives to meet these targets. Incentives. You know, it's incentives, and it's all for inward investment. You know, because we're not smart enough to think of things ourselves, and the government up there, it's easier to turn around and sell it out and let somebody else manage it for you and reap benefits off it, you know what I mean? You know, so that's what's happening here, and they need these resources, they need all these metals to achieve these things. So rather than destroy a country over here and a country over here and a country over here, why not just destroy one whole country to supply the whole of Europe? Yeah. And when you think about the scale of this, people, a processing plant and a GDF. Now, if the GDF goes in, that's like a capsule that goes deep under the ground, right? And it's there forever. So if something was put into you, then the management asset or the assets management team for that has to look after it and control it. So they would have certain obligations and whatever. So they have more rights than anybody else because they have to look after this. Yeah. And that comes first and foremost. And so if that goes in there, regardless of this, right? That'll do away with this. Why? Because it'll tie the UK to ERA for eternity. North, south, east and west. Why? Because they have a thing inside us that they have to manage that is actually got nuclear capabilities.
It's like a brain chip.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Effectively. Once that thing's in your skull, then you become part of the property of the person that stuck it in there because they're exerting an influence on it. It's the same principle, really, isn't it?
Exact same principle.
So they're looking to chip us, really. They're looking to chip ERA.
We're an ancient indigenous people. We're a Gaelic people. We're a Celt. We've got an ancient language, we've got a constitution, we're a constitutional republic, and everything's coming at us at a million mile an hour here. Look what they're doing there, look what they're doing there, look what they're at now, you know, and everybody doesn't know what to do. They can't settle their head down and go, right, stop, let's regroup here. And see what's actually going on here.
People's bamboozled, mate. I mean, when you think of all the stuff that's happening at the minute, and even when I, said to you, look, we'll come on for a chat, and I had about 6 or 7 things, look, we could touch on this, we could touch on that. Now, we haven't got to any of them. No. Because we're focused at the minute on this one issue, and this is something that needs to be focused on. And in light of this, and I'm going to wrap this up, and I'm going to ask you a question, right? I'm going to ask you one question. But when I talked about timescales here, so there's public meetings going on at the minute, as we speak. Now, these are to run at least until the end of March. So we're coming up to the middle of January. So we'll call it another 8 weeks, 10 weeks from now. The public consultation should be wrapped up. It says the first couple of days will cover strategic matters, principle of development, representations from Fermanagh and Omagh and Derry City and Strabane district councils. The planning commissioners will then make recommendations, but the Northern Ireland executive ministers will have the final say on whether planning permission is granted. Well, I mean, I'm not a prophet, but I would be surprised if it doesn't get the go-ahead, right? So park that to the side. We don't know yet because it hasn't happened, but let's say they do get the go-ahead because of what's at stake. Where does that all stand in relation to what you're talking about with regards to an Irish constitution or, you know, a constitutional republic? Does it matter even? I mean, is it just a document that can be waved about? Does it hold any sway at all anymore? Or where does it stand in the light of what's going on here in Tyrone?
That's the Irish Constitution there, people. The enactment date on it. You see that the enactment date, the 1st of July 1937, in operation 29th day of December 1937. Bunrock na Hearn. It's not Constitution of Ireland, right? Britain owns Ireland, the Kingdom of Ireland and Great Britain. They own everything, all the patent laws, all the names, everything Ireland, Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, Ireland, they own it. The government of Ireland, the Constitution of Ireland. Do you see it? What's missing on that book? A harp. A harp is a British symbol. But we've been told it's also Irish, right? But it was Irish nobilists. You know, noblemen who were very rich and whatever had harpists playing in the corner of their big rooms and whatever. It's down in the bottom left-hand corner of the royal standard that flies above the king wherever he's in residence. A gold harp with a blue background. And that's on the front of the constitution that's in play at the minute. This is their Achilles heel. This is the Berlin Wall moment the world's waiting on and doesn't know where it's coming from. This stops everything. The EU Migration Pact, this stops everything because the First Amendment of this and the Second and Supplementary Amendment were ineffective. So therefore everything else should be the same. Why? Because they changed the text till a standardised Irish text, Rick. Look at that beautiful text there. Look at the way it's written. And if you see it there, H-E-I-R. So bun says primary, rat, law, na, off, earn, belonging to, era. And then you have the wee H-E-I-R. Well, what's that say? We're the heirs of era. So why does this go against the Constitution? This mass influx and all that? Mm-hmm. I can read this here without even, right? The preamble of the Constitution, which is not subject to change because it is not a provision. And that's why in the English text it says, in the name of the most holy Trinity, from whom is all authority and to whom our final end. All actions of men and states will be referred. Mm-hmm. We, the people of Earth, humbly acknowledging all our obligations to our divine Lord Jesus Christ. What's an obligation? That's a contract, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So it's a conscious contract to Jesus Christ and nobody else. Humbly acknowledging all our obligations to our divine Lord Jesus Christ, who sustained our fathers through centuries of trial. Gratefully remembering their heroic feat. I can normally read that off, but I was up late last night.
That's all right.
Gratefully remembering their heroic and unremitting struggle to regain the rightful independence of our nation and seeking to promote the common good. Seeking to promote the common good through due observance, prudence of justice and charity, so that the dignity and the freedom of the individual may be assured, true social order attained, and concord established with other nations, do hereby adopt and give to ourselves a written constitution. And that's enrolled in the office of the Registrar of the Supreme Court as conclusive evidence of that. So you have Article 63, which was one of the omitted articles. Articles 51 to 63 were removed, however, still have the full force of law as said in Article 52.2 of the Constitution. But Article 63 says, a copy of this Constitution, signed by the Taoiseach, the Chief Justice and the Chairman of Dalradian, shall be enrolled in the office of the Registrar of the Supreme Court, and such signed copy will be conclusive evidence of the provisions of this Constitution. In case of conflict between the Irish and the English text. That's Irish text, folks. Right? Language text. It's ancient and it's indigenous. The Irish text will take supremacy. So they give us a blue book with a symbol on it, with a harp on it, and it's a blue book, and it's written in English. And then it looks like a form of English with fadas and things and all on it. That is known as standardised Irish. It's a bastardised version. I'm not a bastard. You know what I mean? It's a bastardised version. So if you bastardise something, you become less than. Normally that's what it is. You're less than. So the language itself is so important. It is our heritage, it is our traditions. All of us, even there's David Irvine's wife in the Shankill Road in Belfast, is teaching Irish. And not only Irish is she teaching, she's teaching the Old Irish. That. Because it belongs to us all. It's a language, it doesn't hurt, it's a beautiful, it's the saints and scholars of the world. We educated the world, we built the world. You know, most Germanic names and all in round Europe, all their names derive from Irish names. You know, we're real special people.
We are, and that's what makes, I suppose, this conversation all the more grinding, right? Because you're talking about an area, well, it's dear to your heart. That's where you live, number one. Number two, it's an area of outstanding natural beauty. Number three, there's a lot of families and tradition and heritage in that area. People have been farming that area for a very, very long time. And now, number four, you have a gold mining project that they're looking to effectively wreck the countryside, ruin any chance of sustainability for it in terms of farming for forever. And do who knows what to the infrastructure, the social makeup of that community and the area in and around this proposed mine site, set against the backdrop of what you've said. And I suppose in closing, from what I can take of it's one of the things that you read out there from the Constitution was talked about for the common good, for, you know, everybody benefits, everybody does all right out of this. Well, there's no doubt in my mind that if this thing goes ahead, everybody's not going to benefit from it. Or what is it to say? All animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. Isn't that what George Orwell said in Animal Farm? So you could say the people of Tyrone will benefit from this, but some people will benefit more than others. The fat cats and the people that are getting bungs maybe to get this through will do very well out of it. But the scraps, the crumbs will go to the people in and around that particular area. So this is ongoing. And as it continues to develop over the next month or two, no doubt we'll keep an eye on it. We'll do a follow-up on it. I'll talk to you again maybe next week about a few of the other things that I wanted to talk to you about today. But I think it's good that we zoomed in on this and give it the proper airtime that it deserves. Because I'm not saying there's nobody else covering this, but I just don't know of anybody else that's making a big deal of this. And it is a big deal because it could be catastrophic for the region and catastrophic for what's coming down the line. So in the meantime, Mark, I want to thank you very much for all your imparting your knowledge and your understanding of what's happening at the minute, and you're well placed to do it because it's on your back door as well. So big thanks to you. Check the description box underneath this video. There'll be details where you can hook up with Mark's output on there, and also give him a follow if you use social media as well, and check out some of the videos that he's been put out, very instructional videos about what's going on in Ireland at this point in time. So Mark, big thanks to you. Hope you have a great day. We'll stay in contact and talk again sooner rather than later, no doubt. And in the meantime, that's Mark Molloy. I'm Rick Munn. This is No Risk, No Reward Media, over and out.